edition of Sports Extraordinary here on Atlantic Television Network. My name is Ekpo Temple, and of course, it's Monday where we bring you all the electrifying stories in the sporting world. Now, guess what? On today's edition of the show, we shall look at how the big guys and the ladies are preparing for the Indian Wells. We'll also take a look at the happenings, all that transpired in Europe and in Nigeria, the roundup of all the big leagues in Europe. So the Indian Wells Masters, also known as the Paribas Open, and then the football matters. We have a lot to talk about here on the show today. In the next couple of minutes, it promises to be a blockbuster, an encounter here on today's edition of the show. Thank you for being part of the conversation. We're going to a short break. When we come back, we'll have more interesting tales for you. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Sports Talk here on Atlantic, Sports Extraordinary on Atlantic Television Network. And of course, Ekpo Temple is my name. I have Emmanuel Mike here in the studio, and the both of us will be running the show together. Mike, it's a beautiful evening. Welcome to the Monday edition of the show.
Thank you very much, Temple. I'm glad to be here this evening.
Okay, so let's get started with the discussion proper. I did mention earlier that our focus will be on the preparation from the big guys and the big ladies for the Indian Wells tennis tournament. Now, we'll also do a roundup of all that transpired in the top leagues from the Nigeria Premier Football League to Europe. So let's get started. The Indian Wells start formally from Wednesday, but the likes of Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz is the hot favorite to compete. To complete the real Indian Wells three-part, while Poland Iga Swiatek will look to become the only woman to win the tournament 3 times. Now, the main draws gets underway on Wednesday in California Desert with the world number 1 Yannick Sinner out of it already, serving a doping suspension. Alcaraz has one few obstacle as he bids to join the great names like Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, as the only players who have prevailed 3 consecutive times in the tennis paradise as it is called. Now, at 21 years old, he beat Daniil Medvedev in the last 2 editions of the Indian Wells, and despite falling to Djokovic in the quarterfinals of the January Australian Open, he has enjoyed a strong start to this year with 11 wins so far in the ATP Tour and lost 2 times so far. So, if you look at it, plus or minus, it looks like Carlos Alcaraz, if you do not have Yannick Sinner, having won this back-to-back, the last previous time, 2013, 2023, and 2024, you expect that he's going as a defending champion, and maybe hoping that if you do not have the best player on the tournament right now in Yannick Sinner, then he should be the next, to pick this particular one.
Yes, of course, for Carlos Alcaraz, it's one of the favorites for this year's Indian. Other, strong name as well. But the important thing is that Carlos Alcaraz has been preparing for this very one. He didn't have a very successful year last season, and of course, you expect him to at least build up something positive.
No, I think he also has. Season. I mean, a player that won 2 Grand Slams for himself. 2
Grand Slams, if you compare that compared to what people were hoping of him to do as a young gem, as a new boy.
Maybe because that was a better display from a certain Yannick Sinner. I know that's why he's still world #1 today. And maybe that challenge is understandable why that challenge, because if you're world #1, then absolutely there's nothing he could have done to usurp such position because the guy was in fine form.
He should have done a lot. When you say there's nothing that he would have done, he should have done a lot. Don't forget, before Yannick Sinner came into the mix to, make a wave or make a name for himself in the last 2 years, I think the man Carlos Alcaraz was the favorite name in the lips of so many tennis followers out there. Then in the last 2 years or 3 years thereabout, he was touted to be the new big thing in the world of tennis, as more like the poster boy. But then all of a sudden we began to see the high level of inconsistency with his game out there, and that is why the Italian, talking about Yannick Sinner, came from behind to actually outshine him, because in fact you even mentioned the name of Yannick Sinner right now before even remembering there was a name called Carlos Alcaraz, because of his deep in form since Yannick Sinner came into the picture. And that is why I say, he is highly favored. The odds might go in his favor just because Yannick Sinner is not there. But then he should be very, very wary of this very one, because, like I said, if he doesn't maintain that high level of consistency, I tell you, other players might just be there, to make it count and actually dethrone him and take away this very one. So if he truly want to win this year's India Well, he need to be up and doing field note right from the get-go. He need to make his intention known that he truly want to win this very one, not just being a favorite on paper, because tennis is not played on paper. Like I said, the odds are in his favor, but I tell you, in reality, he need to work it out on the court out there.
And needs to work it out. He's a 2-time champion, and of course, he wants to emulate the likes of Roger Federer, and we also want a redemption after his shock loss to tournament loser Luca Nardi in the 3rd round last year, and one of the biggest upset of his career. Mike, he has a lot of things fighting for. We saw how, like I explained, we saw how he was he left the Australian Open. A particular tournament a lot of people touted him to have won. We saw he participated in the Qatar Open last month, and he lost that since his injury concerns in January. And then, of course, he lost to a wildcard entrant, Luca Nardi, last year in the same tournament. So one would be wondering, having won it for 6th time, do you see him, getting a win in this particular one? Although he must have mastered it, but then in the last 2 editions, they are in the desert paradise.
For me, I think experience, you can't rule away what experience brings to the table as well. He's a man that have played it not once, not twice, but several times. So experience will count for him heading into this very one. And of course, him also bidding to equal or surpass the record of the likes of Roger Federer and the rest of the big name who have also made a mark for themselves. This could be another inspiration that we, of course, you know that anytime it comes face to face against Carlos Alcaraz, he often has the better, he often competition which he took part, courtesy of that hamstring injury that forced him to pull out of that competition. So for me, I think this is another great opportunity for the man, Novak Djokovic, to stake a claim once again. And I tell you, experience, you can't just jettison what experience brings to the table, especially, at this point in time. So I think we all keep our fingers crossed, hoping to see what the man, Novak Djokovic, can do. But like I said, if you take a look at the record that he's chasing, and also being inspired by the fact that this man, Yannick, is going to be head-to-head against Carlos Alcaraz, and that is where experience comes in. So for me, I think he has every chance of making a very strong statement in the Indian Wells.
Well, let's see how it goes. If the Indian Wells would have ended between just Carlos Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic, then it would have been fine, because we expect that one of them will win. But just Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic. America boasts 5 players in the men's top 25 who can expect strong support from the home crowd every time they step on the hard court of the Palm Tree in the Indian Wells. Now, top American Taylor Fritz will look to recreate the magic of his career, breakthrough with where he won 3 years ago, while last year's semi-finalist Tommy Paul hopes for another deep run. Big 7 left Ben Shelton, who reached the Australian Open semis, especially loves to feed off the energy of the crowd and could ride that to a breakthrough win. A dangerous group of American women are also to end a little trouble. First off, let's look at the men's. This competition is hosted in America, in California precisely, and the American guys will also want to take it easy. Like I mentioned, the Taylor Fritz, Ben Shelton, Tommy Paul, which of these guys can hold their own and maybe go all the way to the finals?
I think if you talk about Taylor Fritz, I think the name rings bell more than Tommy Paul and Ben Shelton. But then all these players are potential, winner, and of course heading to this very one on their own home soil. This will help them a lot, because they are very much hopeful and confident going into this very, because of the home support and all of that. But then beyond the home support, a time will come where they need to showcase what they are made up of. And sometimes, when you are on the court, it's more like playing football. Whenever you are in the pitch of play, you don't even know anything that is happening behind you. All you want to do is just to focus on your game. And so also, those on the tennis court are there. Once the hostility gets started, you are there on the court. You don't even know whether there are fans, cheering you to victory. You only get to know after the victory. You turn around, maybe you see the fans cheering you. So for me, it doesn't just boil down to you playing at home and you think it's a big advantage. Of course, it is an advantage somehow, because the home crowd will be there. But then you need to prove your point. You need to prove a point to say, okay, beyond the home support, what can I do? What do I bring to the table? My energy and speed, does it tally with that of my opponent that is not playing from home? So for me, all this is going to culminate into what is going to make this year's, Indian Wells even more thick and more exciting. Don't also forget, at some point, this U.S. pair, they will be paired against each other. So if you are paired against one who is also an aborigine of U.S., so it doesn't make
that implies that you need to go farther.
Exactly.
In the tournament, because pairing comes when you get to the second round of the tournament.
For sure.
But let's see how it goes. Can they hold their own? Just like we talk about the male counterpart, the ladies are also not going to take it easy, because we have seen that the biggest name on this particular one is Iga Swiatek. That name is the only name bidding for history. She wants to win it back to back to back. Okay, no American woman has ever lifted the trophy in Indian Wells, and that when you look at the likes of Jessica Pegula, Coco Korigov, the likes of the big names in the U.S. scene in the women, do you think they can hit Iga Swiatek harder, knowing fully well that she's a defending champion?
I think for me, we'll get to see how this one pans out. But for Iga Swiatek, I think she has been able to maintain that high standard for a very long time. So you cannot just, ride her out of this very one, because she's highly favored on this very one. On the cards as well, she's up there with a very, which point or point margin that, some of the bookmakers has given to her or tipped her, to be one of the favorites. So no doubt you can't rule her out. But then talk about the likes of Cory Kokogov, the likes of Ima, Raducanu, and the rest of them. These are also great players any day, anytime that can be able to hold their own. For me, I think for the WTA, we seem to have more players that have actually niche for themselves. So whenever you talk about the WTA, it is always tensely contested because you have great players out there hoping to, leapfrog each other to make a better ranking. This is what makes it very tough. So for me, in the WTA, I expect even more competition, for Iga Swiatek, because so many players will be bidding to dethrone her from where she's standing right now on the top. We just learned that the, new calendar or new timetable was just released a few hours ago, and we understand that she was still maintaining a very high ranking on the table out there. This is another big challenge because whenever you are paired against a player that is lowly ranked, that you are far away ranked more than such player, I mean, you tend to face difficulties because this player, they will get prepared because they know they are coming up against the best of the best. So you need to prepare extra. It's more like, minnows in football, if they are minnows any longer right now in football, trying to face the super eagles right now. Whether it is Seychelles, Trinidad and Tobago, just name it, Kenya, they want to also muscle show that, exactly, because by mere hearing of the name, they know they'll be playing against the best, so they always want to give her their best. So also the same thing is more like a replica of what happens in the WTA. It's not going to be an easy one for Iga Swiatek.
Truly not going to be an easy one, especially when you have, five WTA players in the top 10, where Iga Swiatek is also placed, and that tells a lot about the Americans, isn't it? But I did mention earlier that the only player that have won the Indian Wells was Serena Williams in 2001. Since then, no American player had ever tested a victory in terms of lifting the trophy in the Indian Wells. Talk about Bukov, talk about number 4, Jessica Pegula, mention them. You can talk about how they are paired there, and Simova. These ladies have not been so good in terms of challenging this one. But one lady is exceptional. There's one player that the Americans don't want to face is Aryna Sabalenka, world number 1. And I tell you why, because she plays, that's the fear factor of coming. I mean, she has not achieved anything so far this season, and that should tell many in the final of the US Open to another US WTA player. That means that she'll be coming in with this anger, this spirit in her. She also lost that last month in one or two of the tournament, and what I truly want to avoid now should be that lady. Do you think she can match the prowess of these ladies?
For me, I think she has what it takes, just that in the last few months, she hasn't been at her best so far, and that is why we saw her even being defeated at the Australian Open by a teenager for that matter. In fact, most of the 500 ATP events that she has taken part, even the last 1,000 event that she took part, she was also hosted by a teenager, Mirja Andreeva, at the age of 17. In fact, that young chap was able to defeat world number 1, world number 2,
and went all the way to win the
trophy, down world number 3, and went all the way. So you can't rule out upset at this point in time. And of course, you are seeing and hearing some of the new names, some of these young kids that are making names for themselves, and it's going to even be more difficult for her, especially as the world number 1. Everybody coming up against you is going to buckle up her seatbelt, knowing fully well that I'm coming up against the best of the best. So I think it's going to be a handful of games for her to be able to stay at that world number 1. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of perseverance, a lot of hard work. It's going to be a very difficult one for her.
But before we go on the short break, let me just ask you now, considering the fact that we had Madison Keys and some of the names in the top, top 10 there. At this point, if we go on country basis, will you think that same with the men? Will you say the US players are the best, or the US has the best tennis players going by the rankings?
For me, when you talk about the best players going by ranking, definitely US should be there, but they are not the best because Yannick Sinner is an Italian
But
man.
because somehow they look at best from the perspective of
How many players is
no, I
within?
mean they're lifting the Billie Jean competition and the King's Cup. But then that's where nations played something was sort of World Cup in quote. Okay, and it's been Italy winning it, dominating that scene. Like you talked about Yannick Sinner. But when you look at individual players, hitting up the rankings, one should just argue that maybe the US has more or better or equipped tennis players that are more competitive than others.
Well, whichever way you want to look at it, one thing remains certain that the US, they are not the best for now, because even in the WTA, you are having players like Arina Zabalenka at number one, and she's not a US-based player. Then you are also having players like Zheng Qing, the Chinese. She's not a US player. But when you talk about the US, you talk about Jasmine Paolini, you talk about Kuri Kokogov, of course, yes, they are there. Iga Swiatek as well, so for me, I think if I want to rate it going by the ranking, I will say that the US, they have more players that are well noted, not because of maybe their standing for now on the table, but
Individual players,
individually, because they boast about 3 or 4 names.
Exactly,
that when you hear their name, the name rings bells because of their past achievement. But presently, they are not within the #1 ranking, both in the male and in the female category. So using that statistics from me, I won't say they are the best for now, but then they are among the best.
All right, with that, I'm going to short break. When we come back, we have more football actions for you, starting with the Nigeria Premier Football League. We have 3 games we are on showcase this evening. Of course, we'll bring you highlights and, of course, preview of result. Even one that is ongoing right now. We'll talk about our particular one. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back from that break. If you're just joining us, it's still Sports Extraordinary. Of course, we're looking at Wales, and this time now to take you through the roundup of football actions across the various leagues from the Nigeria Premier Football League down to Europe. Well, first off, to the Nigeria Premier Football League, we saw a lot of actions. We saw, yes, we saw 7 games over the weekend and 3 more games to conclude week 27 of the Nigeria Premier Football League in state. Kensley, what will this win do for Aqua United?
I think what it does is that it has helped them to also stay in the relegation zone. What it do for them is that if they can continue to get this type of positive result, they might, just might, gradually with a snail speed try to see if they crawl out of that relegation danger, because I tell you, despite their victory, they are still within the relegation zone. But then, good thing they were able to get all 3 points. But consistency should be the key word here. Can they be able to replicate this same form in their next game? That is where my problem is.
Well, can they do that? Katsina United now losing back-to-back now. Lost to Rivers United and, of course, last Friday. And then they lost again to Aqua United. For Katsina United, it looks like they have to be one of the teams that somehow find a way to stay on the log. But Kingsley, having lost back-to-back now, it's not going to tell good about them, because other teams will also want to leapfrog them wherever they are.
Yeah, for me, not a good one for them. But then, it looks as though they have lost the winning mentality, because
in Maduguri, 1-0 ended for Lobby Star. I mean, for Economic Warriors against Lobby Stars. For Lobby Stars, swimming in deep waters continues for them. Not the kind of result they would have wanted, but somehow they cannot help it traveling away from home.
Very disappointing one for Lobby Stars. In fact, it is as good as saying that they are already relegated, because they have just garnered only 23 points out of 27 games so far played. That is, they even find it difficult to get a point in a game. And that is why they have played 27 games and they amassed a total of 23 points.
Deficit of 4.
Deficit of 4 points. So for me, talk about their goal ratio as well, not a good one at all. So for me, I think it's as good as saying that they are already relegated, unless there is a last-minute miracle from the god of soccer, if there is anything at all like that.
And that will depend on the other results in the next couple of games for them to put through. And maybe a lot of person cannot justify why certain the bull, the bull left that side, because I'm sure you would have seen the future and knows that the club is going. It's not good for his reputation.
For sure, you know, Daniel Amokachi, aka the Bull, is one man that have a strong will. He doesn't take no for an answer. And whenever you see that things are not going in the right direction for him, his image and reputation, he will just decide to take a French leave or decide to throw in the towel. You saw when he was even appointed to be the assistant of Finidi George in the national team. He utterly refuted. He did not take up that job. Why? Because for him, there may be a reason that is best known to him. And of course, people might say, okay, that reason actually went well, because if he was the assistant of Finidi George, I think that poor shoe from Finidi George would have also rubbed off on him. So for me, he has made his intention known earlier that he wanted to leave Lobby Star. The management had to call him to a roundtable discussion. They had to dialogue issues, and he decided to stay for whatever reason. But it looks as though he has seen it that indeed, if I continue to stay here, I may just go down with these people, and it might tarnish my own image as a coach, and that is why he decided to take a walk.
Take a walk from that side, and the assistants now, Rivers United are not working. They are running, in the 4 walls of the pitch. They are the Adamasingba Stadium in Ibadan, where they are taking on currently Shooting Stars, and Benga Gumbote, the man they call the Oracle, as against his counterpart here in River State, Finidi George. I'm just wondering where the pendulum will finally swing to, but it's currently, after 46 minutes played so far, it looks like Rivers United are doggedly desiring of getting a point from this encounter.
I mean, they must fight till the end, because football is played, in 90 minutes plus the maybe a little additional time that will be added by the center ref out there. So the first stanza or the first half of the game, they were able to hold. Let's see if they can be able to continue with this doggedness to see if they can be able to get at least a very, very valuable point, possibly, sneak it and see if they can get all 3 points. Because for me, the best form of defense is to attack. You don't really need to go and start, packing the ball just because you want to get a point. You eventually pile up pressure against yourself, because most of the time you discover that the ball will be within your 18-yard box, and any infringement at all within the 18-yard box is either incur the wrath of the center ref, which might lead to penalty. So for me, I think they should just maintain the way they are going, and see if they can be able to, finish the game in 90 minutes. But I tell you, it will be very difficult.
All right, another result of games played on March 27. We saw how effortful it was for some teams. Let's look at the results of games in the Nigeria Premier Football League. Sunshine Stars, defeated the Kwara United 4-2. Abia Warriors were held at home by Nasarawa United, the Solid Miners. I'm sure that Dan Ladi will be celebrating because of his newly appointed as the commissioner of the side. The guys lived up to expectation, getting a 1 point away from home there. Barca United the Samson Siaza Stadium trashed, defeated Benden Shona, of course, not trash. That game was a very hard fighting encounter, nail to nail, but Barca United did the needful, getting that desired result. Kano Pillars at the San Abacha Stadium also, got it through against Enugu Rangers. 2-1 it ended. Eric Chile was live in the stadium to watch this particular game, Michael, and I wouldn't know what was in his mind after the encounter, but he has not spoken. And I'm not sure he also had time to be briefed or to get some pressers for us to get. But the man, anytime the man goes out to watch games, it looks like he's scouting for players.
Of course, he's scouting for players. He started by going abroad to, get himself abreast with some of the European-based Super Eagles players out there. Coming back home, he's been working with the local coaches here to see if he can be able to see 1 or 2 players to add to the Super Eagles team. His motive of going to Sani Abacha Stadium over the weekend to actually keep tab with what is going on out there was about Ahmed Musa, the captain of the national team, to see if he's fit enough, he's good enough to be called back into the national team. But then we'll keep our fingers crossed. Just like you said out there, we haven't had any briefing because I'm sure he did not speak with the press shortly after that game to see which side his thought is swinging towards, whether Ahmed Musa, we are going to see him back into the national team or not. But then I think for Kano Pillar, despite getting that impressive victory, I think they are in for a very strong finish, because courtesy of that result, they are seated on the 4th or even 5th position on the league right now. To see, yes, they are seated on the 4th position, making a very strong statement for themselves. Very impressive victory for them. We hope to see them continue in this fine fashion, because don't forget, Kano Pillar is one of the traditional teams right here in the Nigerian Premier Football League. They won the title, as well, not once, not twice, not 3 times. So for me, I think it's going well for them. I hope they continue to, with this impressive show till the last lap of the league, because we have just few games to go.
Of course, we'll have those few games to go. Ikorodu City got a 2-0 win over Heartland of Owerri. Tornadoes lost at home to Eyimba, and Mohamed Margin, the manager of the side, was not very pleased with that result. Remo Stars dig deep to get a 1-0 win over Plateau United. Away from that, now let's move to other issues, and of course we'll move straight now to the FA Cup, where we saw some result of the FA Cup in England. There were no English Premier League over the weekend, but somehow the most resonating and reactive game has been the one between was it Fulham and Newcastle? Okay, no. Yes, Fulham and Manchester United. Of course, we saw what played that encounter. How our own Bassi scored that goal, leveled up by Bruno Fernandes. Somehow it went to penalty, and 2 players losing, ensuring that Fulham, get to the next stage of the competition. And after that one, reaction have trade the press release of the comment made by Ruben Amorim, saying that they value the English Premier League more and intend to win it. That is the goal of the club. Although players like ex-players like Wayne Rooney have also come out to debunk such assertion, but then that has taken shy of all that played out. But Michael, I mean, losing is not the problem. They want Arsenal to go to this level, no doubt. But when you lose and then you make statement that you need to win the English Premier League, that for me it looks very ambiguous, isn't it?
I think for me that was clearly a diversionary statement. You were asked a question about how you were knocked out of the FA Cup. You left it to go start talking about the how you want to win the league and all of that, which realistically speaking, Manchester United, even if they get to win all their remaining matches and Liverpool get to lose their games, they can't win the English Premier League. You know, so for me, I think it was more like a way of trying to extricate or exonerate himself from the shame of losing out, you know, to a very turbulent time for the man, talking about Ruben Amorim. The whole saga at Manchester United right now with the, you know, thought of trying to even downside yet other workers. The free food is gone at Manchester United. Workers are going to lose their job even the more. Many people will be sent to labor market, talking about people's father and people's mother. They will be sent back to, you know, labor market as Manchester United are trying to cut costs. But then that has not also been helped by their on-field display out there, because it's been a disaster for them so far this season.
It's been a disaster for them this season, and of course I can tell you that Aston Villa defeated Cardiff City 2-0. Crystal Palace were 3-1 better off than Millwall, and the Preston North End defeated Burnley 3-0, and the Bournemouth are lost to Wolves. You know, of course, and of course we've seen the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. You know, release where players will be going in for that particular one, and I can tell you vividly that if you look at the games that you expect, tough one. Manchester City looks like the only team that still have an edge, but then can they go through the scores of the games, the teams that they've been scheduled to play, you know, in the quarterfinal round?
I think at this point in time, it look even more dicey. Any team that you're playing against at this quarterfinal tie are potential champions, so you don't need to take them for granted. Manchester City, we've seen how some teams had to cause an offset before they were eliminated. Teams like Plymouth, who also defeated Brentford, sent Liverpool packing as well, you know, but before they were defeated, humbled by Manchester City. So this should be a pointer to Manchester City that they need to buckle up and take every game very serious, because if they tend to win anything positive, any trophy at all, then the FA Cup might just be the realistic, you know, chances or trophy for them this season.
All right, away from that, let's take it through other leagues where we saw some action, and we'll start with the La Liga Santander, where there are actions in the league, and it looks like the leadership has changed batting right now, because we saw the games Real Valladolid played the one draw with Las Palmas. Girona were ahead at home by Celta Vigo 2-2. Real Valladolid were ahead by Sevilla. It took the effort of Real Betis to get a 2-1 win against Real Madrid. Same with Atletico Madrid, who won at the Wanda Metropolitano 1-0 against Atletico Bilbao. Leganes defeated Getafe 1-0. Barca thrashed Real Sociedad 4-0. Mallorca played the one draw with Deportivo Alaves. Osasuna were ahead at home by Valencia 3-3 it ended. And tonight we'll see Villarreal, the Yellow Submarines of Villarreal against Espanyol. This promises to be another top cracker in the La Liga Santander. Michael, if you look at the change that has changed batting, so sorry for Real Madrid.
You don't need to be sorry for them because they had a chance, they squandered it because they lost to Real Betis. Surprisingly, it wasn't a game that Madrid should be very proud of, because looking at how the table is placed, or where they were placed even before that game, it was expected they should get all three pressure on you know, Barca and Atletico Madrid, but they fumbled, thereby allowing Real Betis, you know, to have the better of them. Of course, one of their players was, you know, for the Real Betis, talking about Isco, who also did pretty well, exchanged their pleasantries with the coach, talking about Don Carlo Ancelotti shortly after that. But then, I think it was a very big point drop for Madrid, and courtesy of that, Barca winning their game yesterday 4-0. They've gone to the apex of the league, 57 points. They are now 3 points, you know, ahead of Real Madrid, and 1 point ahead of Atletico Madrid. And coincidentally, Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid will be locking horns tomorrow in the UEFA Champions League round of 16 playoffs. So for me, I think we see how, because there are still games to come. Don't forget that El Clasico is also the determinant factor of who wins the La Liga, because it is not won by a goal difference. You have to check head to head, you know. So for me, I think the league race at the La Liga is still very much on.
Very much on, and of course, in the coming days, we get to see how it all pans out. In the Bundesliga, we saw VIP Stuttgart lost to Bayern Munich on Friday, 3-1 attended in that particular one. FC Heidenheim also lost at home to Borussia Mönchengladbach 3-0. RB Leipzig were thrashed at home by Mainz 05 2-1. St. Pauli also lost to Borussia Dortmund, the guys who left Signal Iduna Park to get that particular win. VfL Bochum lost at home to Hoffenheim 1-0. And Werder Bremen losing 2-1 to Wolfsburg. Eintracht Frankfurt also lost scandalously to Bayern Leverkusen yesterday on Saturday 4-1. Union Berlin lost to Holstein Kiel 1-0. Augsburg played a goalless draw with Freiburg. Looks more like it was just the away teams doing the magic in the Bundesliga last weekend.
Out of 9 games played, the 8 away wins, and that is how intense and how competitive the Bundesliga over the weekend is. You know, we never expect this kind of game at the Bundesliga, because oftentimes you see this kind of result in the English Premier League, which is touted to be one of the most competitive league in the whole of Europe top 5 league. But then over the weekend we saw something very spectacular at the Bundesliga. Out of 9 games played, recording 8 away wins. That is massive. Massive,
and that takes us now, take our drive, of course, down to Rome, the capital of Serie A, Italy, precisely, where we saw some drama in some of the encounter. Atlanta were held by Venezia. Goalless draw, it ended. Fiorentina defeated Lecce 1-0. Napoli were held by Inter Milan in Naples 1-1. It ended, and that's the talking point there. Udinese somehow, without the first and second goalkeeper, defeated Parma 1-0. Monza lost to Torino 2-0. Bologna were 2-1 better than Cagliari. Genoa played a 1-0 draw with Empoli. Yes, Roma, yes, defeated Como 1907 2-1. AC Milan lost to Lazio 2-1. And then tonight we're going to see Juventus taking on Hellas Verona. The talking point over the weekend was Inter Milan playing 1-0 draw against Napoli, and looks like the both of them are running like 2 horse race who to win the Italian Serie A.
There's one point separating both teams, Inter Milan and Napoli, and Napoli has to come from behind to actually pick up that very point, which means it keeps them going on the race. But I tell you, it's going to be a last finish, a last fight, a fight to the finish from what we are seeing from these two teams, Inter Milan and Napoli. Of course, they are very, very strong, very dogged, and that is why nobody could annul or nullify each other yesterday. They had to share the spoil.
And let's see how the spoils were shared in the Ligue 1, where AS Monaco thrashed Reims 3-0 at home there. Saint-Etienne lost to Nice 3-1. It ended. Lens lost or same at home to La Havre 4-3 in the 7-goal thriller. And the Paris Saint-Germain defeated the Lille 4-1 to show that yes, the title is for them this season. Lyon defeated Brest 2-1. Angers lost at home to Toulouse 4-1. Ozel also lost to Strasbourg 1-0. Montpellier lost to Rennes, not just 1 but 4 goals to nil against Montpellier. And then Marseille defeated the Nantes 2-1. Our sports extraordinaire goes to Vincent Kompany, going away to get maximum point there. It looks like he's gradually getting his mojo back. Do you agree with that, Kinsley? Michael?
I think the only reason why he's our sport extraordinaire for today is that he's the only coach in the whole of Europe top 5 leagues to have led or guided his team to score as much as 72 goals in the whole of Europe. For me, I think he's been very good.
So somehow, regardless of the tactical issues, the guys have been churning out the goals for him.
Yes, of course they have.
Congratulations to Vincent Kompany for being our first extraordinaire on Monday edition of the show. Many thanks to you for being part of the conversation, and thanks to Mike for also being the co-host on this show. My name is Ekpo Temple. Oh, this is why we call it a wrap on today's edition of the show. Join us again same time tomorrow at 6 to 7 p.m. every weekday to Saturday even. And you can join us and let's get you heated with some of the best sporting stories around the globe. Until then, have a blissful evening on Atlantic Television Network. Bye-bye.